For years, the story of the United Kingdom's economy has been a familiar, almost monotonous one. London and the South East pulling ahead, leaving the rest of the country struggling to keep pace. We've all become accustomed to the headlines of booming property markets in the capital, the endless discussions of London's global financial power, while towns and cities just a few hours north fought for scraps of investment, often defined by their post-industrial struggles rather than their future potential. But something fundamental is happening, a shift so profound it's beginning to turn that long-held narrative, that assumed hierarchy, completely on its head. We're looking at new data, hot off the presses from January of this year, that paints a picture London might not want to see, a reality that challenges decades of economic conventional wisdom. The Centre for Cities' Cities Outlook 2024 report delivers a stark, undeniable message. Between 2021 and 2022, cities in the North and Midlands collectively grew their economies by a staggering 9.1%. Now, let's put that into perspective. Compare that to cities in the south, outside of London, which grew by 8.8% in that exact same period. For the first time in a very long time, the North and Midlands are not just keeping up, they are, in key economic metrics, decisively outpacing significant swathes of the south of England. This isn't just about abstract numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about real people, real jobs, real businesses, and real property values in places like Manchester, where the economy expanded by a robust 10.2% in that single year, or Liverpool, seeing an impressive 11.0% jump in its gross value added. Newcastle wasn't left behind, with its economy growing by 9.4%, and Leeds, a major northern hub, wasn't far behind at 9.2%. These are not small incremental gains. These are powerful double-digit or near double-digit indicators of vibrant, growing urban centres that are attracting investment and creating wealth. Now, before anyone in London quickly dismisses this, saying, "But we're still number one," let's be clear. London's economic engine is vast, and its growth during that same period was indeed formidable, clocking in at 11.4%. That's an impressive figure, certainly. However, the critical takeaway here is the direction of travel, the relative strength, and the burgeoning confidence of growth outside the traditional singular economic powerhouse. It signals a diversification, a spreading of opportunity and prosperity that many believed was simply impossible to achieve, a permanent feature of the UK's economic landscape. This story, this challenge to the old order, isn't a brand new concept, but its acceleration is. Think back to the mid-2000s and teens. The concept of a northern powerhouse was first articulated by then-Chancellor George Osborne back in 2014. He stood in Manchester, delivering a speech where he declared that the cities of the north were individually strong, but collectively they can be a powerhouse for Britain. For many years following that speech, it felt like an aspiration, a political talking point, often overshadowed by the continued gravitational pull of the capital. Then came the levelling up agenda, a more recent, broader government policy, officially laid out in a white paper in February 2022, promising to reduce regional inequalities across the entire United Kingdom. Skepticism, especially in the north, was understandably high. For decades, the North watched political promises come and go, often with little tangible change. But the data right now shows something concrete, something that moves beyond rhetoric. It shows that foreign direct investment, the kind of money that builds new factories, establishes major offices, and creates long-term sustainable jobs, is increasingly looking beyond the M25 motorway that encircles London. In 2022, over half, specifically 53%, of all FDI projects into the UK landed outside London and the South East. Let that sink in for a moment. More than half. This isn't just a handful of projects, it's a significant reorientation of global capital. The Northwest alone, a region that includes Manchester and Liverpool, pulled in 226 FDI projects in that year, coming in second only to London itself, which saw 319 projects. This isn't simply a case of companies escaping London, it's a recognition of the inherent strengths and burgeoning ecosystems already present in these northern hubs. Even venture capital, that often London-centric world of high-growth tech and innovation funding, is noticing the shift. The KPMG Private Enterprises Venture Pulse report for the third quarter of 2023 stated that in the first half of that year, UK regions outside London and the South East attracted £2.1 billion in VC funding. Money is actively flowing into places like Manchester, which even ranked in the top 10 European cities for VC investment in that same period, and into Leeds, fueling startups and scale-ups that are creating high-value jobs in digital, technology, and advanced manufacturing sectors. This isn't simply a case of companies escaping London, it's a recognition of the inherent strengths and burgeoning ecosystems already present in these northern hubs. So what precisely is driving this significant measurable shift? Part of it, undoubtedly, is a direct reaction to the sheer escalating cost of doing business and, critically, living in London and the South East. The pandemic, which forced a massive, unprecedented experiment in remote and hybrid work starting in early 2020, played a truly transformative role. Companies across the UK and internationally realized they didn't necessarily need vast, expensive London office spaces for every single employee. At the same time, skilled talent, from recent graduates to experienced professionals, began to realize they didn't need to pay exorbitant London rents, commit to grueling commutes, or sacrifice quality of life to have a fulfilling, high-flying career. The combined appeal of robust job markets, lower living costs, and vibrant cultural scenes in cities like Manchester, Liverpool, and Leeds became an incredibly powerful draw. People started to vote with their feet, and their employers followed suit. But there's also the crucial and often contentious question of infrastructure, and here's where the political spin often clashes sharply with observable on-the-ground reality. The high-speed rail project, HS2, was initially touted as a cornerstone of northern connectivity and growth, an essential artery that would link these northern powerhouses faster to each other and, crucially, to London. It was painted as the physical embodiment of the northern powerhouse vision. Yet, in October 2023, the government made a hugely controversial announcement: significant cancellations and scaling back of the northern legs of HS2, including the entirety of the eastern leg to Leeds and major sections beyond Birmingham to Manchester's Piccadilly station. Northern leaders, figures like Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham and West Yorkshire Mayor Tracy Brabin, have been vocal, even furious in their disappointment. The official government messaging is that alternative, more regionally focused transport improvements will somehow fill the gap. But critics, and indeed many residents in the affected regions, argue vehemently that this decision sends a profoundly mixed signal about the government's long-term commitment to truly levelling up the north. Actions speak louder than words, and cancelling major transformative infrastructure projects that would connect these growing northern hubs that would unlock further potential feels a lot like pulling the rug out from underneath them, even as the underlying economic growth continues to defy expectations. The question is, does the rhetoric match the investment? Many would say no. The reality, however, is that even with these perceived political setbacks and infrastructure compromises, the economic momentum in many northern cities feels, in many crucial ways, organic and self-sustaining. It is driven by homegrown talent emerging from strong regional universities, by ambitious local entrepreneurs, and by a growing palpable confidence that these cities are finally being recognized for their inherent strengths. The numbers from the Centre for Cities are clear and unambiguous. These aren't just one-off blips, easily dismissed statistical anomalies. This is a sustained period where cities like Liverpool and Manchester are building robust, diversified economies, attracting significant investment, and crucially, creating jobs that were once almost exclusively the domain of the capital. Sectors like digital tech, life sciences, advanced manufacturing and creative industries are flourishing, creating diverse employment opportunities. The traditional UK economic map is quite definitively being redrawn. London will always be a global city, a financial titan, a cultural behemoth. Nobody is disputing that. But to ignore the seismic, verifiable shifts happening further north, to pretend that the old order remains unchallenged, would be a profound mistake. The immediate question isn't whether London is still growing, because the 11.4% GVA growth for 21 to 22 confirms it absolutely is. The more pressing, more impactful question is whether London can continue to dominate the entire national economic narrative when the verifiable facts show other significant parts of the country are not just catching up, but in specific, crucial ways, actively pulling ahead. This isn't just a challenge to London's long-held preeminence, it's a direct challenge to the old assumptions about where wealth and opportunity are created and distributed in the United Kingdom. And for the millions of people living and working in the North and Midlands, for the businesses choosing to invest there, this rebalancing, this genuine growth is long overdue. It signifies a profound structural change that will continue to shape the UK's property market, its investment landscape, and the lives of its citizens for decades to come.